Hi, my name is Amit Nizan, and I'm the author of the launch book for Intro to Advertising. I'm here to give some advice about how to get into the advertising industry. As I finished school a few years ago, I'm a perfect person to give you some pointers as I've seen the industry change just in the last 5 years. I'll start off with some advice of what you can do while you're in school, and then as you prepare to graduate, and finally, once you enter the vast world of professional advertising, what you need to do to stay successful and true to yourself. So since this is the intro course, my best advice is pay attention. Learn as much as you can about each element of the advertising process so that you can understand exactly what it is that you want to do in that process. There are many different kinds of jobs in advertising, and it's not limited to account management or copywriter. There's planners, researchers. There are positions that exist now that didn't even exist 5 years ago, and by the time you get out of school, there's probably going to be a few more. I would suggest that you volunteer a lot. Your school newspapers, even with your professors. See what research projects they're up to and what you can do to help. That way you start to learn what you're good at and what you enjoy and how to apply the skills that you like the most to your professional development. Work in sales, work in planning, work in media, work in creative. Whatever you do, try all the different parts of it so that you can understand not only what you're the best at, but what you enjoy the most and how they all fit together, because that's really what's going to set you apart professionally. As you prepare to graduate and you start thinking about what you're going to do and how you're going to get a job, the first thing to keep in mind is that these aren't finance companies. They're not going to hire you a year in advance and, have a big bonus and move you up to New York or whatever big fancy city. The advertising industry is very lucrative and are no shortage of job applicants trying to get in. So remember when you're first breaking in to be a bit humble. Even though you have a degree, you really don't know everything. So don't apply to agencies or companies until you know you can start. On the client side, there may be a little more lead time, but with agencies, if you're not ready to start the next day, you probably shouldn't apply because they're only going to post a position once it's ready to be filled. Same thing generally with the client side, but again, sometimes there's a little more leeway. And that goes for all, I would say, agency intro spots. But don't necessarily wait until you're ready to interview for a job to reach out to these people. If you're going to be in New York, or if you're going to be in Atlanta or Los Angeles or wherever it is that you want to eventually work, call the agencies that you would potentially work at and see if they would give you a tour, or if you could sit with their HR person, or if you could sit with their head of planning if you want to be a planner, or if you could sit with their creative team or creative director, which probably won't have time for you, but calling and asking and making an effort to learn about an agency or a business that you would want to work at can speak volumes for the integrity that you have in finding the right fit for you so that you can contribute most to that company's success. Now, the biggest thing to keep in mind as you prepare to graduate and start to work in the industry is to do your research. Things aren't as cut and dry. Their relationships between different companies are blurring, and a company that you interview for in December may be bought by a different company by June. So make sure you understand the role of every company that you're applying to and talk to them about what their role is in a particular client's business. Many clients, some of the biggest clients in the world, have a host of agencies that they work with. So if you're applying to, let's say, work at Unilever, or you're applying to Ogilvy, which is one of their agencies of record, understand what Ogilvy works on and what they don't. Before you go into any interview, you have to do your research. Who are these agencies' clients? What kind of work have they done recently? Have they been written about in the trades? What is their unique selling point? What makes this agency different than any other agency? And what makes you best for this agency over any other candidate? Every agency has a distinct point of view, and they love to talk about it. So when you get to the agency, ask them what it is. I was fortunate enough to work at two great agencies that have two great philosophies. And if you walk into any TBWA branch, when I worked at Shia Day, and you don't ask or you don't know about disruption, then you don't know about their philosophy as an agency, and you can't prove that you understand how to make an impact and input their philosophy to the work, sort of on the ground. And SS&K, asymmetric communication, no one else owns that. That is their distinct way of looking at communications, and it's not just a philosophy for philosophy's sake. It's the way they expect you to practice if you're lucky enough to be hired. So take a moment to understand what different agencies' approaches are and what resonates the most with your own philosophy. If you believe in silos and you think that things shouldn't be integrated, then you probably shouldn't go work at an integrated shop. If you believe that integration is the only way to go, then you probably shouldn't go work at a shop that specializes in only one discipline. Neither one is better than the other. You just have to understand what works best for you, because having a job that you don't believe in isn't going to get you anywhere. Tap into your resources. Look at your college's alumni list. Where are students who graduated 2-3 years ahead of you? Where are they working now? Call them. See if you can meet them. See if you can learn about their jobs. Those are great, great connections. Ask a friend of a friend of a friend. Don't be afraid to ask. I have given out so much advice to friends, of nieces, of uncles, of people I've never heard of, because I was lucky enough to have an experience that could help someone else. I wish that someone would have told me half the things that I learned in the first 2 years of my jobs. There's no such thing as no connections. You make connections by yourself. Go to the ad society. Go to the professional organizations. Go volunteer at the newspaper. Go do something in another professional organization, or even a sorority or fraternity. Any position that you hold or membership that you make is a relationship that you can capitalize on. I met someone in a political science class whose sister happened to work at Y&R, Young and Rubicam, in New York. And so he was nice enough to call her and say, hey, can I forward my friend's resume? She's in advertising. So he sent my resume to her, and I interviewed with her and another woman at Y&R when I was looking for internships in New York. The last point I would make is to understand not only what your desired position does in the advertising industry, but how it also works with the other positions within the industry. When I meet account people who don't understand what project managers do, or print producers who don't understand what researchers do, I start to see the breakdown in the product. And as an account person, I had to know a little bit about everyone else's expertise in order to make the call on some difficult decisions. If I've got an art buyer telling me that this piece of original art is going to cost some ridiculous amount over budget, I have the know-how to say, okay, why don't we source some stock and see how that works out? And I can make those options available to the creative team to ultimately make the decision and recommendation to the client. But if I don't understand what my options are, then I'm not doing my job as well as I should. So that's just one example of understanding all of the disciplines in order to be better at your own. So in conclusion, I would recommend while you're in school, get as much experience in class projects, student organizations, volunteering, whatever you can do to dabble in the different areas of advertising. Do that. When you're getting ready to graduate, start reaching out to the kinds of companies that you want to work at. Ask them questions about themselves. Understand what their philosophies are and if they match with what yours are. Do as many internships or programs that you can. Any experience is good experience, even if it's not what you want to do. If you want to go into creative and you're going to go to a portfolio school, still do that sales internship because it's going to make you better. And when you go and you get these interviews at these agencies, ask them questions, understand how you can be of value to that agency or to that client, how advertising affects the business, how it grows the business, where the science overlaps with the practice, and you'll be very, very strong and you'll set yourself apart in a way that will make you a better advertising professional. And I'm always available to take questions.